In 1930, Grant Wood painted his work of art, American Gothic. But the term Gothic is a term that changes through the ages. Modern day sees a goth as someone that's dressed in all black, has black hair, maybe wears too much makeup, and paints their nails all black. It's a very dark thing. However, if we take a look at history, goth means a little something different. If we go all the way back, we can take a look at a Germanic tribe that helped invade and destroy classical Rome in early Christian era. The language itself is now extinct. But then, Gothic came to signify Germanic, and then medieval in response to architecture and art in Western Europe between 1100 and 1500. Some of the characteristics you've probably seen in several films, like The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and Westminster Abbey in London. If you look at those structures, they all have the pointed arch and vault, the flying buttresses, stained glass windows, and those creepy gargoyles and disgusting grotesques on the side. Those were there to keep the spirits at bay, weren't they, and shift water off of the rooftop. But the term itself entered literature in the late 1700s during the Age of Romanticism. A tricky thing about the ages regarding literature, the writers of those ages would rebel against whatever the conventions of the previous age happened to be. So, let's take a look back before Romanticism when we had the Age of Enlightenment, around 1660 to 1770. Some of the general conventions were reason, order, and good taste. René Descartes, the French philosopher, his terms, I think, therefore I am, that idea rolling around. The works were satirical, didactic, they focused on themes of reason versus passion, and the focus was on the society over the individual. We don't have to look too deep to find Gulliver's Travels when we have Gulliver traveling to the land of the Winhams, and they see the Yahoos, who is these lower, almost like a lower class, these disgusting creatures follow passion. They do whatever their passions tell them to do. If you're a psychology major, let's just say they follow the id. Gulliver seems to attach with the Winhams, the horse-like creatures on this land, and they follow nothing but reason. However, one bad thing is that though they follow reason, they seem to have no soul. They don't really care about anything. There's no emotion there. And so what we find during the Age of Enlightenment is this struggle between reason and passion, and at the end of the day, reason has to control passion, or something bad will happen, or something negative. So, when we look at the Age of Romanticism, starting around 1780, we find rebellion and revolution. The American Revolution, we have the French Revolution. So not only in literature, but in the major cities in Europe and in the New World across the Atlantic. The focus shifts from the society. They're focused on the individual now. There's a love of nature, of imagination, of escapism, mysticism, and yes, what this class is all about, also the Gothic and the grotesque. So, if we take a closer look at a Gothic story, now that it's part of literature, we really have three styles. We have a tale of terror, we have a tale of horror, and then we have an ambiguous Gothic tale. If we take a look at a terror story, then the supernatural element that we find is real. Dracula really is a vampire. Little Regan really is possessed by the devil or a demon. If we take a look at horror, then the supernatural is explained through rational, logical, or scientific means. In other words, we get our Scooby-Doo ending. But then, as we find with great authors like Edgar Allan Poe, we have the ambiguous Gothic tale, where the reader is given both a terror and a horror explanation, and we're left trying to figure out which is which. So, as you read through the stories, you'll want to find out, are we dealing with the real supernatural or the seemingly supernatural, or is it ambiguous? Some of the conventions of Gothic literature. Let's start with some of the stock characters. We have a damsel in distress. Sorry ladies, you get kind of the short end of the stick with this genre. And then we have the mysterious stranger, the outsider that comes into town. We have the mad scientist. We don't have to look far and see that mad scientist in stories like Frankenstein, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and even Reanimator if we want to look into the 1920s with the Lovecraft piece. And then we also have a character, it's what we call the romantic hero, or the Faustian character. This character seeks all knowledge and turns to the dark side in order to gain that knowledge. In other words, sells his soul to the devil. Those are some of the stock characters that we'll be looking for, and in the file in Blackboard you'll notice several more. Now let's look at setting. The setting of a Gothic work, usually a castle or an abbey. And as time moved on, that shifted, and we went to the mansion, for instance in Poe's Fall of the House of Usher, and also the dark forest, as we'll see in Young Goodman Brown. And later, when we get over to American Gothic, it's usually a plantation house, typically associated with the Southern Gothic genre. Some of the motifs that we find, murder is certainly one of them. Gothic is full of murder. Vampires, werewolves, oh my, those are found throughout Gothic as well as the doppelganger, or the evil other, the twin. And what would Gothic be without a little voodoo and witchcraft?